Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday. The S&P 500 was down 0.07% today. I think the thing that was most interesting about today is it didn't move much one way or another. Kind of a flat line day all the way across. A little bit more action in the Dow and the small caps and what have you. But the tariff situation, of course, is still the big news. Some, more conversations around, the BRICS countries. These are the countries that are trying to establish maybe something currency that would be used outside the dollar. Talking about a 10% additional tariff, on those. This was started yesterday, actually, but talked about some more today in some interviews. The August 1st deadline last night was maybe a little bit flexible today, more of a hardline time frame. So we'll see what happens. I think, once these countries get into negotiations, they probably would move the deadlines around if they have to, as far as that goes. So, we're still waiting to see what the average tariff is going to be. It depends on who you listen to now. It's someplace in that kind of 15 to 18% range. That's before these new tariffs that were happening. So today there was a tariff of 50% announced on copper. You've got tariffs, that came through yesterday, on 14 different countries, in that kind of 25 to 40% range. And so, average tariff starts to climb. There's probably some average tariff we could absorb here and not create a recession and maybe have this one-time bump in price increases. I wouldn't think it's at 15 to 18, and it's actually going higher. So we'll see. Again, that's the problem with this. There's not a lot of track record to look back at tariffs and see, what they did and how they worked. But that's where, trying to find out 50 different ways to say we have to wait and see. That's kind of where we're at right now, actually, just in terms of this. But there's always some developments going. It does seem like the tariffs become the new thing to talk about, especially now that the tax bill is done. And so that's going to be probably the focus for this summer, is kind of all the different ins and outs of what happens there. I guess the one thing I was a little bit concerned about is China started kind of rattling their sabers a little bit, especially for the 10% extra tariff on the BRICS countries. And then maybe even because with the situation with Vietnam, they've been passing a lot of product through Vietnam because of the lower tariffs there. And now they're saying that if they do that, there'll have to be a 40% tariffs on those. It'll be a little bit hard to enforce that, but nonetheless, China saw that as kind of messing with their trade agreements with other countries, in this case, Vietnam. And so that's where China's got some situations here where they could escalate, of course, the rare earth metals, the different, antibiotics and those types of things. So it'll be, interesting to see if they start, upping the pressure on their side because of what they're seeing coming from our side. We could get back into a little bit more of a tariff war. I think that's why the market was sitting today and not really going, was just because, there's some things we've got to see play out here, even in the short term. So anyway, that's what's happening today. Not a terrible day at all, actually. Things are kind of hanging in there. We're not that far from the all-time high. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some type of dip in here, just because, we do get kind of a second half of July and August. We have had dips several times in those timeframes just on a seasonal basis. But with all this tariff confusion coming through, however, a 3, 5, 7, 10% dip probably would be seen as a buying opportunity, like we saw back in April, for the market at this point in time. Because again, we're still not seeing, the ultimate results of what might transpire from these tariffs and from these deportations and things like that. And we're also, got the positive side going on with the tax bill and the deregulations that are still going to be coming at us too. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, that's what's happening today. Look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Thank you.